couple of housekeeping issues. The restrooms are both open. The ladies' room is just here outside the door to the right, and the men's room is on down the hallway toward the front entrance to the right. All right, and can everyone hear me? Sound good? All right, now we're going to get started. Good evening. I'm Kelly Gillenwater from the Department of Environmental Protection's Public Information Office. I am the facilitator for tonight's public hearing to discuss the proposed construction stormwater permit requested by Antero Resources for the Antero landfill project. This application will involve phase 1 of the project and deals with construction stormwater runoff. Also here this evening are Yogesh Patel, John Michael Bosley, Larry Ward, Wilma Reap, and Nancy Dixon of the DEP's Division of Water and Waste Management, and Nadia Siren, who you may have seen out front from the DEP's Public Information Office. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give you the opportunity to share your comments with the DEP about the proposed construction stormwater permit. Following are some particulars on the proposed project. The total number of acres proposed to be disturbed is 110.6. Of that, 107 acres would be in Doddridge County, and 3.6 acres would encompass an existing access road in Ritchie County. The immediate receiving stream for this proposed project is an unnamed tributary of the North Fork of Hughes River. This proposed project is located in the Little Kanawha River Basin. This project proposes to have 9 culverts on the main access road in Doddridge County, which includes the mixing building and main access road. In Ritchie County, there are no culverts proposed on the existing access road. However, there will be a proposed diversion ditch with rock check dams. The proposed ponds, fill area, and existing access road drain to Ritchie County, while the mixing building and main access road drain to Doddridge County. Again, this hearing is for Antero's construction stormwater application, not the application for Antero's Class F industrial solid waste facility or 401 water quality certification. Tonight's hearing is being recorded by a court reporter so that the comments shared can be taken into consideration for the stormwater construction permit request. All the comments received this evening will be part of an official transcript. All written comments received will also be part of the public record. To ensure that we successfully achieve the purpose of this hearing, we ask that everyone be respectful and considerate of each other by refraining from interrupting those who are speaking and keeping your comments on topic so that our time together is used efficiently. Please note that discourteous conduct may be cause for the offending party to be asked to leave the building or the hearing to be ended. Because we do have several speakers who have signed up to speak and others who haven't indicated whether they do or don't wish to speak, we're going to have a 5-minute time limit. Obviously, some people will probably take less than that. A few may go a couple of minutes over, so that's fine as long as we average about 5 minutes per speaker. For those wishing to speak, when I call you to provide your comments, please state your name and if you are representing any groups or organizations. If you have written comments that you would like to submit in lieu of or in addition to your spoken comments, please hand them to me after you speak or at the conclusion of the hearing. Written comments can be submitted for up to 10 full days after this hearing with a deadline of September 3rd to have those into us or at least postmarked by that date. That date again is September 3rd. Comments can be emailed to dep.comments@wv.gov with Antero Stormwater Construction Permit in the subject line. And if you need that email address again later, just let me know. You can also mail comments to Sharon Mullins, that's M-U-L-L-I-N-S, Permitting Section, DEP, Division of Water and Waste Management, 601 57th Street Southeast, Charleston, West Virginia, 25304. And again, if anyone needs that address afterwards, just let me know. If no one has questions about the hearing format, we'll begin with our first speaker. No questions? Okay, first up we have Autumn Bryson.
I want to thank DEP for the opportunity to comment on Antero's permit for the Clearwater facility and landfill. We have submitted substantial written technical comments, and I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of our findings upon reviewing the permit applications for this project. So a project of this size has never been built in Appalachia. At 486 acres for the entire site, it will be the largest and the first of its kind. It's easier for me to visualize in terms of pounds instead of tons, so I did the math, and this facility would generate 146 billion pounds of salt, 146 million pounds of sludge. For a 26-year lifespan, this project will generate approximately 379 billion pounds of sludge and over 3.5 trillion pounds of salt. That's a lot. So you would think that a project of that magnitude would have a very detailed permit application. That would take weeks for us to review. You can imagine my disappointment when we realized that these permit applications were so inadequate that they are basically a joke. If a college student turned in this for a grade, it would probably get a D. In the 401 application, I know we're not here for the 401, but I just wanted to briefly mention that there's no detailed analysis of the downstream impacts on the drinking water sources or aquatic life. There's no disposal plan for the 200 tons per day of sludge generated at the facility. They say they're going to transport it off-site, but what are they going to do with it until it gets off-site? There's no detailed mitigation plan. They list a few options, but again, those are just options. They don't really have a full plan in place at this time. Only 11 out of the 89 streams that are potentially impacted were properly assessed. And to measure the ecosystem health, they relied on an outdated system that measures to the family level instead of the genus level for macroinvertebrates. And they conducted the surveys outside of the ideal season. So those are just a few of the issues that we found in the 401. In the stormwater permit, they don't have a lot of the required information. They don't have a groundwater protection plan. There was no spill prevention and response procedures. There was no site-specific information that's required in the permit. And they lack the detailed information on how their activities will impact public drinking water sources. So Antero is proposing to locate this monstrous facility in the Hughes River Water Board Source Water Protection Area, which provides drinking water to over 4,000 customers in Harrisville, Pennsboro, Ellensboro, and Cairo. With all of the trillion and billion pounds of salt and sludge this facility will generate, they could at least explain how they plan to protect these people's drinking water sources. And let's not forget that this is the same company that just got fined by DEP $11,000 for 8 spills that have yet to be cleaned up. So without the adequate information to determine how the drinking water and aquatic life will be impacted by this proposed project, DEP cannot grant these permits. Antero must provide detailed information on how they plan to mitigate the destruction of habitats for threatened and endangered species and how they will avoid contaminating the water supply for thousands of individuals. Thank you.
And I'm apologizing if I pronounced this incorrectly. Robin Blakeman? And if I could ask each speaker at the conclusion, if you could just stop really briefly and spell your name for the court reporter, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Just to do that at the microphone.
You can do it at the end. You just want to reach over.
Hello, I'm Robin Blakeman. I'm with the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition and with the Ohio River Citizens Alliance. We are quite concerned about this facility. The massive size of it will impact, as was mentioned by Autumn, the Hughes River watershed area. But we are even more concerned about its potential impact on the Ohio River Valley. We realize everything flows downstream, and in addition to the thousands of water drinkers here in Hughes River watershed area, there are millions of water consumers along the Ohio River in its course. We need to protect our water above all else. I'm going to raise up a few other issues that we're concerned about. One is the major traffic problems that this facility will cause, the eyesore of the site. I can speak to that from my trip over here tonight on Route 50. I couldn't believe all the cranes and the tanks that are already on that site. And it is not, and never will be again, the beautiful scenic drive that it used to be along Route 50. Also concerned about the amount of streams, wetlands, etc. that are going to be impacted. We have signed on to West Virginia Rivers Coalition comments, and I just want to quote some of their statistics. 6,707 feet of ephemeral streams, 21,121 feet of intermittent, and 164 feet of perennial streams will be impacted. 11 wetlands to be impacted. This is a massive facility. This is not just 100 acres. This is 400 to 500 acres of disturbance of land that we're talking about. And I think we need to take this seriously. And beyond that, take seriously the drain on these headwater streams that will impact people downstream, such as myself. I get my water from the Huntington intakes, and I'm quite concerned about the impact on the Ohio River from this facility. Thank you.
Cindy Welch. And I don't know if this is a yes or no. Lou Baker?
I have some written comments I'll give to you when I'm done speaking. We emailed them in also. I hope we sent them the right email address.
Yes, I think we saw yours.
Okay. My name is Louis Baker. I'm a source water protection specialist for the West Virginia Rural Water Association. Source water is a kind of a catchphrase, but it stands for the source of drinking water, public water supplies.
Speak up, please.
Yes. I have written comments I'm going to submit. It's just really a little over a page or so. I think I'll refer to my written comments and pretty much read from. It's not just limited to the construction stormwater permit, which is what this hearing is for, but it also includes a little bit about the landfill and 401 certification. And it's pretty much general comments, not too terribly technical. But, you know, Anterra is proposing having a plant that will bring in all the salt water, all the brine that comes up out of the large production gas wells in the area, mostly their own wells. That's called the flowback water. The water comes back up out of the well after a frac job, and then over time, then it produces, these wells produce an awful lot of just essentially seawater, but it's saltier than seawater. That water, that brine comes up out of oil and gas wells, and it always has produced oil and gas. So anyway, you've got to deal with that. And historically, one way to deal with it is just put it in a surface pit and let it evaporate away. And that kind of works in the drier parts of the United States. Here in the east, where it's humid, those evaporation ponds never do work. So the technology has been to inject the brine underground. And the state of Ohio has some large capacity injection wells. but we end up getting earthquakes when we lubricate faults with injected brine, try to force feed the earth with the brine. So now Ontario wants to have a plant that will take all this brine and have a desalination plant to separate the water from the salt, and then bury the salt on an adjacent landfill. So it's like 2,000 tons a day of salt to be buried. And like Autumn said, there will also be sludge that will be separated out. This radioactive sludge, it will need to be transported off-site to a landfill that can handle that. 600 trucks a day bringing the brine in. So there are chances of spills. So that's something that needs to be addressed. With the stormwater system, I'm sure there will be stormwater ponds. And in my mind, it would be a good thing, even in the construction phase, but certainly later, when the salt's being buried, for those stormwater ponds to be continuously monitored. Not just people going out and grabbing a sample every once in a while and sending that to a lab, like we normally do with discharge permits. But we have the technology to continuously monitor water level, water conductivity. So the higher the conductivity, basically that's a measure of the salinity. If that stormwater is becoming somewhat salty, and when this thing's in operation, then that should be a warning sign. So an alarm can go off, and the problem can be addressed as soon as it starts, and not be something that gets out of hand when a storm washes a stormwater pond full of brine downstream. So that's something that the West Virginia Rural Water Association is recommending, is continuous monitoring for this site. Now, last Friday, Ontario was at the Ritchie County High School and a public meeting that they had, and they promised to provide continuous monitoring for the intake of the Hughes River Water Board and to cooperate with the Friends of the Hughes on collecting grab samples of the streams in the watershed, and that's all to be commended. But I think it would be also wise to have continuous monitoring equipment at the facility. And this is not totally without precedent in West Virginia. When we had a number of years ago, back when the Marcellus industry was getting started, in Morgantown, there was a controversial Marcellus well that went in, I think it was in Star City, on the west side of the Mon River, just uphill of the intake from Morgantown. And that was a very controversial well to be drilled there. A lot of people were against it. But Morgantown Utility Board approached the drilling company, and together they agreed to put in extra sediment ponds with continuous monitors, and to be able to have an alert on that drill site that other drill sites around the state don't have. And so they came to consensus on those extra protections, and they approached the DEP and told the DEP, we need to make this permit stronger than what was originally issued. So we have the technology now to do a lot better job of monitoring permitted facilities, whether it's this one or other important ones around the state. And I think it's time we began adding extra protections to permits, especially if they're upstream of a public water supply intake. So there's opportunities for people to work together and put in extra protections. Nothing will ever be perfectly safe, but we can certainly try to do what we can. Thank you.
Mariana Barham.
worship my way up here. Hi, my name is Mariana Barrow. I am a Doddridge County resident. I've lived in Doddridge County for 34 plus years. I am also a member of the Doddridge County Watershed Association. I speak on behalf of myself as I stand here. And first of all, I want to say that I agree with everything that has been said so far. If there are deficiencies in the permits that have been applied for by Antero, I feel that it is the responsibility of the West Virginia DEP and the people that have the oversight over these permits to make sure that all the P's and Q's and dots, etc., are covered. As a Doddridge County resident, since Antero has entered our community, I have seen loss of life, I have seen traffic accidents, I have seen a total disregard for our water, our air, and respect for the people that live in this community. Just recently, I think last week, there was another water truck accident where a truck ran the red light at 18 and 50 and cut off the front part of a senior citizen van. Okay, fortunately, everyone survived. Antero has numerous violations, but yet all they appear to get is a slap on the hand, and they continue operating. Why aren't they? They should be held to the standards that are there to protect all of us. The size of this facility is mind-blowing. And right below that facility, you have a community, Greenwood, across the highway. You have a community of lower-income people. And yeah, you know, some people might wonder why more people don't speak up. Having lived in West Virginia for 34 years, there are a lot of people that are afraid to use their voices or don't know how to use their voices. Whether they're educated or not educated, they're afraid they're going to have repercussions, will lose their jobs, etc. And I just find it incredibly frustrating and heartbreaking that a company that continues to break the rules and to hurt people continues to get the seal of approval. You know, yes, do this. The tons and tons and trillions of pounds. How does close to 500 acres contain that much salt? How much water? You know, even if they have the evaporation ponds, even if there is evaporation going on, that site sits on a rise, so the people that are living down in the bottoms are the ones that are going to have to suffer through it. And they're blocking off headwater streams. And how many wetlands? Yeah, we in this area are concerned about flooding. You look at the flood event in June here in West Virginia. What was that? They're calling that a 1,000-year flood. Then what just happened in Louisiana? We've got climate change going on, but yet more and more of our area, the resources that are used for water to sink into, we have pipeline right-of-ways where everything's been clear-cut. We have, I don't know how many well pads that have all been clear-cut. We have streams that have been blocked. We have wetlands that are gone. And yet, this is just another opportunity for big business for us to pay for it with our lives and our health. Thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity that you folks are giving for the public to speak. Okay, I truly appreciate that. But what's happening in our community, our headwater community, impacts everyone downstream from us.
I'm not sure if this is a yes or no. T-Stump?
That's I, and I couldn't have said it any better, Mariana. Maybe a little nastier at
Okay. And again, I'm not sure if this is a yes or a no. Deborah Rosen?
Good evening. My name is Deborah Rose, and I live in Pennsboro, and I'm here speaking on my own behalf. We got our drinking water from the Hughes River, so this whole storm drainage thing is a big concern to me. Antero didn't fill out the application completely and properly, then the answer is no. Antero consistently violates environmental standards and gets just a slap on the wrist, so the answer has to be no, until they can get their act together and do the job right and do it safely. In the long term, we don't know what chemicals we're going to be exposed to from this water treatment plant, because the Antero won't disclose that information. So it's mystery chemicals, and they're playing mystery diseases for all of us who live here. And not just the people, but all the animals and the plants and everything else that makes our world livable. So the answer, until they can disclose what they're really doing, what they're actually using, the answer has to be no. And it's the DEP's job, it's the DEP's obligation to protect the citizens, not the corporations. And it's time that the DEP stepped up and did the job and said no. Thank you.
Bill Hughes?
The name is Bill Hughes, H-U-G-H-E-S. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Wetzel County, which is 2 counties to the north here. First off, I support all the comments that have previously been submitted by West Virginia Rivers Coalition. Most of my comments here are more generic comments about Antero's competence and their reputation. Since this is a new, somewhat experimental, all we can go by is what their track record has been to this point. Now, we've had active drilling in Wetzel County for over 8 years. We've seen every manner of problems, be they air, water, waste, truck accidents by the thousands. For 6 years, I've followed this in great detail, and I probably have, at a minimum, 20,000 photographs of this. So I followed it very closely. I followed the operations of at least 8 or 10 different drillers. It might have been initially Chesapeake, then Stone Energy, Trans Energy, EQT, HG Energy, Triad, Hunter, now Southwestern Energy, just all of them. And as far as I know, in all that time, I have been asked by folks here, but I could not take you to Wetzel County ever in those 6 years and point out to you a water buffalo. Now, you folks at Dodgers know what they are because it's a very common item here. Antero buys them with a group discount, they buy them in bulk. In a few tours of Dodgers County here, I probably saw a dozen of these things. Now, the industry and Antero, Chesapeake, all we heard 6 and 8 years ago, folks, we've been fracking for 50 years. I think Antero is still on the steep side of the learning curve. If they have to provide so many water buffaloes to so many homes, they need a little bit of remedial training. So, given the fact that they have a lot to learn yet, and this is experimental new technology. I think everyone here should be of grave concerns about their ability, their competence, and possibly their integrity. Maybe they do mean well. I know what they're proposing seems to be an experimental technology, at least at the scale that they are proposing it. It's not been done or not been done on this scale. Last year, some of us here would have attended Antero's public meeting at I think it was at the courthouse. And they seem to come across as a bit inexperienced, inept. We'll figure this out as we go. They seem to be totally unprepared to discuss radium-226 and 228 and the other constituents that we have all known for decades in the brine or produced waters, or as we all like to call it, residual. And they came across with some silly statement, well, our landfill liners will last 1,000 years. Now, this is going to be a really interesting test. I don't know if they're going to be around 1,000 years. No synthetic material will last like that. That's all.
Charlotte Pritt.
I'm Charlotte Pritt, and I served in the Senate and the House on the Interstate Cooperation Committee. And when I served, I was really happy to prevent out-of-state garbage dumps from coming into West Virginia. And we did have, and I'm glad that we do have the DEP here, WVDEP, because it's by state law that you should be allowed to come up and speak. Now, what I am a little bit unhappy about is that we should have had more transparency and for people to be able to understand what the public hearing was going to be about, the enormity of the situation. And what I've been most disturbed about is what you, Mr. Hughes, talked about, the elephant in the room. This salt, anything that has to do with the backflow from hydrofracking is radioactive, my friend. Radioactive. So we have radioactive salts, and we have radioactive sludge. And that is going to be so much, and I'm sure that our DEP knew about it, because in 2013, Forbes magazine had this to say. Jeff Mahone, in the April 24th, 2013 Forbes article, addresses the danger to water supplies. Radium is also perceived as a threat to water quality. The brine that returns to the surface after hydraulic fracking has been found to contain up to 16,000 picocuries per liter of radium-266. The discharge of radium-226 is 16 picocuries per liter, and EPA's drinking water standard is 5 picocuries per liter. Any reasonable person would admit that the brine return excesses are staggering and excessive and dangerous. Now, what concerns me is why are we not testing radioactivity in everything that has to do with hydrofracking? I'll tell you why. The DEP can only do what the legislature and the governor, the sitting governor, mandates them to do. If we have a governor who is really interested in protecting you and a legislature who is interested in protecting the citizens of West Virginia, then laws are passed that allow the West Virginia Department of, well, some people call it energy production now, unfortunately, but on the books it says environmental protection, but there's been very little environmental protection allowed in the last since, well, we had Senator Joe Manchin here, and then Norway, and then who knows who next. But what I'm saying is this: West Virginians should not put up with this. Do you know that the physicians in New York said we can't have this, it's too dangerous, the radioactivity, all these things are dangerous to our people, and New York State banned hydrofracking like many other countries in the world. Pennsylvania even has an alarm system set up on their landfills where this sludge is going to go. And what are they telling you? It's salt. They don't talk about the radium and the thorium and the radionuclides, do they? No. And we probably don't even test that here, do we? And we have a landfill that's being proposed that is allowing radioactive materials to come in here. Any backwater flow in the Marcellus Shale, because we are in the same shale that New York and Pennsylvania and all the other states are. We are in the center of it. Matter of fact, the New York Stock Exchange, I looked at Antero, a little publicity thing that was on their website. June the 9th, 2016, a third party, was it Ike Morris? Who is it? We don't know. Sold them 55,000 acres in the center of the Marcellus Shale for $450 million. Now we need to know who it is and who's selling us out, besides the governor and the West Virginia legislature. We need to take some action, and we need to try to find a way in which we can protect ourselves from this monstrosity. You know, they said the Titanic was so safe that they didn't even have enough life jackets when what happened to the Titanic? What happened? We all know it sank on its maiden journey. Now what we have here is an experimental, a huge experimental hydrofracking, making the water clean, which is impossible. For West Virginia. Oh, it's going to be here in West Virginia. Guess why? Because we don't have anyone protecting us except the people, the good people here who have devoted their lives to standing up at great peril, as Mariana said many times. The other states, the other countries would not for 1 minute tolerate this site coming in because they know it's dangerous. There's no way you can not make it dangerous. And you said, Mr. Hughes, the lighting would last maybe 1,000 years. Well, the half-life, the half-shelf on radium-226 is 1,600 years. So this is absurd, and it's insulting to any West Virginian who knows the truth. That let Antero say that salt, the radioactive material is salt, and they're going to put it in a little teapot? How insulting. How insulting. And we need to make certain that people know, that the governor knows, that the legislature knows, that we know what's going on, and we don't appreciate the fact that they're putting this stuff over on, trying to put this stuff over on West Virginians. To even suggest that this monstrosity should be permitted is an insult to any intelligent West Virginian. It will cause people's lives. It has already caused a lot of health issues, death and destruction of people on the highways. 900 trucks coming in and out of here. How many more people are going to die before we have someone who's going to step up and help us, other than those of us who've been fighting this monstrosity? This should not be permitted under any circumstances. There is proof, not only in the United States, in other states, but there is proof throughout the world that hydrofracking is dangerous, it cannot be controlled, and we should not have it in West Virginia. I would like to say that I have copies. There's a lot more on these copies of information about what other states are doing to protect themselves, and also an editorial that I wrote in 2013 about the radiation that we're not being told about here in West Virginia. So I'd like you to look at that, and I'd also like to have this available. I'm going to put it into evidence, so please pick one up so you will know what is happening here in our state, and you will know that you have a right by law to be here talking about it, and it's a responsibility of DEP to make certain that they have this in a way in which people, the scope of the permit, it was very difficult to find this. I had to get Tom Rule to find it, what the permit, where it was. It's online, so to speak. Yes, it's published in the paper, but it's online. Well, 35, maybe 40% of West Virginians don't have access. They don't have access to a computer. It's of the responsibility that West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection to start protecting the citizens of West Virginia and make sure that they know the full scope. And we need to start hearing about radiation.
Lydia Ermelina.
I would like to concede my time to Charlotte Britt, and Charlotte, I would like for you to discuss the wetlands that are involved in this.
Okay, thank you.
What is involved in wetlands, what they are actually doing.
All right, yeah, thank you. The wetlands of West Virginia. What are wetlands? You know, we've been taught to kind of think, oh, but they're thinking about some flora and fauna there. The wetlands are when the aquifers below start surfacing to the top. They're actually the entryways to our water, our natural resources. Folks, water is the gold of our lifetime. Have you noticed how throughout the world, corporations are trying to get control of water and selling it to people? They're trying to make it illegal for you to even catch rainwater. How crazy is that? This is how completely obscene the corporations have become as far as encroaching upon your power. So what do we have here? We have a proposed landfill that's going to be on top of not one, not two, but 3 wetlands. And they're telling us, oh, don't worry now. Don't worry, we have something that will protect you from the radiation. If this thing goes in, we're going to be so hot. If you were just to drive by it, you'll probably be radioactive for days. So the wetlands are the entryway to your water system. And you know what is so sad? There were people who came from California, you know the C's, Andy and John, and they did a little research. Where is the best water, the purest water? North Central West Virginia. The very place that your governor, your legislature, and your West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection thinks it's okay to put a landfill, radioactive landfill, on top of 3 water sources. 3 water sources. Not to mention the ephemeral streams. Not to mention what's going to happen, you know, with the little springs that are coming up. What is happening in West Virginia is not only horrific, it's absolutely obscene. And it's immoral, unethical, and probably illegal what is happening to you in West Virginia. And I have a question. I want to know what we have to do to repeal and revoke the permits that have already been given. We want to know what process to revoke the permits that have already been given to here.
Denise Binion.
I'll yield my time to Charlotte.
Okay, are there any other questions concerning? I apologize for being a little emotional, folks. I have a well water. I just went through a situation in Charleston, West Virginia a couple of years ago when we were poisoned. And we had hydrofracking black flow, we know in that. I happen to know some of the people who actually contained the, those 2 tanks. It wasn't, first they lied about was, it's MCHM. And then it was crude MCHM. And we worked with scientists. We had some great scientists coming in from New York and from South Carolina, because they were going to charge us $2,000 to test our water to see if we had these chemicals in it. And we had people coming in from New York and said, we'll do it for free. RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, number 4 in the world for environmental engineering. But it was so horrific. I had friends at EPA who were sending me, Charlotte, this is junk science. There's not a test for MCHM. It's like saying that, there's no test that, oh, you don't have leukemia, and they test you for diabetes. That's the level of misinformation that is going on in this country, and especially in the state of West Virginia. So I went back to a ground well. And so when I think about those of you who have your well water, it's going to be compromised by this, folks, there's no way of getting around it. If this continues, people are going to die. And you're going to have cancer. And you're going to have people not only dying on the road, but you're going to be dying of terrible kinds of deaths. Because we've already seen that. Many of us have talked to people in Pennsylvania who've already gone through this. Yes, I apologize for being a little emotional, but you know what? This is something to really be emotional about. This is something for the Celtic women, Boudica, to level London. It's time for us to level this ridiculous hypocrisy about that it's safe. If you see someone if someone tries to tell you, oh, it's safe, well, I'm sorry, Mama. But you know what? It's the time you just want to smack their little faces, right? Because you know they're lying to you. They're lying. Anyway, thank you for any other questions? Anything else you'd like for me to say? Yes.
The future generations of the people, in the entire state, the folks at the DEP, ourselves, and the folks that work for
I'm sorry, Kurt, you said my generation?
future generations.
Future
Can you
generations.
repeat what he said so the court reporter gets it?
Yes, could you stand up and say, just so that I can hear you more carefully?
Well, the folks at the DEP, as well as ourselves, and the people that work for the extraction industry, their generations to come will be deeply affected by what happens right now. Right now, with the poisoning of this water and the desecration of the area here. Everybody will be affected. Your offspring, your future generation will be deeply affected by what happens at this time.
At this time, when he said the future generations, yes, everyone in this room, whether you have children or grandchildren or not, we are fighting for the future. There will be people die. There's no escaping it. We already know it. We know it from the tests of what's happening in Pennsylvania. The New York physicians said people are going to die. You can't do this. There's no way of doing it safely. But what's happening in North Dakota? What's happening in Colorado? France said, no, we're not doing it. There are other countries where they have real democracies. Yes.
Can you explain to everyone what happens when radiation hits the body about the bone?
Yes, let me read this. If you want to know what happens when you have radiation in your water, get ready, folks. It's coming your way unless this is stopped. Here we go. Radium-226 is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. It travels easily up the food chain, and when ingested by humans, it replaces calcium in and around the bone joints to irrigate the surrounding blood and connecting tissue. Concentrates of radium-226 as high as 18,000 curies per liter were logged by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation prior to the state banning horizontal hydrofracking permits altogether. Can you all hear me okay? One peer-reviewed U.S. Geological Survey report found that millions of barrels of wastewater more radioactive than the federal limit for drinking water and around 300 times more radioactive than a Nuclear Regulatory Commission limit for a nuclear plant discharge. That's what you're going to get. And you know what? Every person who okays this, every legislator, every governor, every person in the DEP that is not allowed to, they're going to have blood on their hands, folks. They will have blood on their hands. Now, I couldn't live with that. I could not live with knowing that a whole generation is going to be wiped out. That it's going to take 1,600 years, actually probably 3,000, the whole thing, before the water is ever drinkable again. And they're doing that to the best drinking water in the United States of America. And who's doing it? Your governor, your legislators, and actually the people here tonight. They serve at the will and pleasure of the governor. Most of them probably are as horrified as you all are. But they're a state employee and they have to keep their job. And your county commission, other county commissions, let me tell you, other county commissions are standing up and they're fighting back. So I would encourage you, maybe get enough signatures to replace your legislators or your county commissioners. If you get more signatures than they got votes, hey, guess what? You can make a change. And you need to. You need to. Anything else?
Anthony Ermelina?
I want to give my time to Charlotte. Maybe she can talk about the jobs that are supposed to happen.
Oh yeah, you know, this is the thing they do in West Virginia. They did it with, and my daddy was a coal miner. He was UMWA President Local 1776. He died of black lung. And we've been held hostage here in West Virginia. And you know how I know? When I was down in Central America doing the signing of the RE's peace plan, I went to the first all-women's delegation to Central America to find out what the heck is happening with our money that we're sending down there. And I talked with a UN official, and he said, honey, it's not going to be long before they're doing to you in the United States what you all been doing to us here in Nicaragua, and El Salvador, and Honduras. And you know what? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, these big coffee plantation companies, they hold us hostage. We're not allowed to have any other industries coming in because those coffee beans have to be picked just at the right time, and we never know because the weather can mean it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks later, and it has to be picked by hand. So we have to have a willing and hungry workforce that'll work for hardly anything at any time when we need them. They'll be doing that to you, honey. They'll be doing that to you in your own, back in your own home, United States, before too long. And I think about that every time we have one of these big companies coming in here that's going to save us. They said, 250 construction jobs. Well, we don't know if they're going to be in West Virginia or not. And then they're going to have, maybe 21 permanent jobs? What price is that? I don't care if it is like Morse who's getting $450 million. How many people does he have to kill? Or whoever it is that has that. How many people have to die before the greed is satiated? It's not going to be jobs. And you know what? In West Virginia, we could be doing solar, we could be doing wind. We have ways. We could be doing our legalization of marijuana. We could be doing a lot of things so we're not caught in this, you got to do this, you got to have this big plan. I think we should say enough is enough. I think we should say enough is enough. We're taking a stand. We're not putting up with it anymore. And let me tell you, there's no better place in West Virginia to take a stand right here in Doddridge County.
April Keating.
I'm from Upshur County, and I'm representing Mountain Lakes Preservation Alliance today. We are a small nonprofit conservation organization based in Upshur County, West Virginia. Actually, we're a multi-county organization, Upshur, Lewis, Harrison, Braxton, and Gilmer counties that we have members in. We have a website, www.mountainlakespreservation.org. I would like to reiterate everything that has been said so far, and I wanted to add a few things. The DEP has some good people, a lot of good people, but not enough. And this is the problem. As far as I know right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are 17 oil and gas inspectors in the state, is that right?
I don't have the number.
It's somewhere between 17 and 20. Last I looked, it was 17. We have 55 counties and 55,000 active and 12,000 inactive gas wells in West Virginia. There is no way that any inspector could keep an eye on all oil and gas activity, whether it's new drilling or legacy activity. This water is radioactive, just as Charlotte was saying, and speakers before her were saying. And we don't know how to handle it. When we put it underground, it comes back up. Now, the thing about this facility, I was at the meeting last week, and Antero had their PowerPoint, and they had their pictures, and everything looked pretty. And it looked really good. They had 8 layers underneath and 5 layers on top, and they're going to keep everything inside there. The water's going to slough off just like it rolls off a duck's back. But the concentrate that leaves that salt that they take away, they say they're going to take the radiation out. I talked to a woman who worked in a nuclear plant, and she said there is no way you can take radiation out. So they're going to be selling this salt. They're saying it's going to be food grade. I don't know if I believe that. But are you going to be getting that in your Morton salt box in a couple of years? Are you going to be putting that in your swimming pool? Are you going to put your kids in that water? Why does everybody have cancer right now? The gas industry is ubiquitous. We all feel that there's no other way. There's no other way to get energy. Well, there certainly is. If we were to put solar panels on 0.6% of the land mass in this country, we can power the entire country. All we have to do is put them up and tie them into the grid, but they don't want to because it's all about profit. This facility, whether we're talking about the Clearwater facility or a pipeline or a compressor station, they all want to say, oh, that's a separate thing. That doesn't have anything to do with this. You know, pipelines are different than wells and landfills are different than pipelines. No, it's all part of the same package because they need the landfill and the pipeline to deliver the gas from those wells. They were talking about 4,000 new wells in the next 40 years, 4,000 new gas wells. I want to know where they're going to get the water for that because we're going to be out way before that happens. We're going to be out of clean water and we're all going to be fighting over it. And just as Charlotte said, yes, water is the new gold and we've got to stop poisoning it. This land, this West Virginia is a national treasure. And we are wasting it. My mother wrote our state and centennial song, "This is my West Virginia." She was proud of the state, she was proud of its people, and she would turn over in her grave to see what we're doing to it. I want to point out that the entire system of gas is toxic from cradle to grave. You don't have enough people to watch it and control it. I know people who work in the industry who said that they had to quit because they couldn't live with themselves because they've seen it. People drive up with a full truck to a water intake to a beautiful place like Middle Island Creek or Middle Fork River, and they will dump the contents of that truck, and then they will pick up the water that they want and take it back and shove it underground with all those chemicals and bring up that brine and that arsenic and that radiation that lives in the Marcellus. And there it goes back into that beautiful trout stream. Now, our organization and a lot of organizations go out and do a lot of volunteer work and put in a lot of hours. We do water monitoring and water testing. Why aren't these companies required to water test every single place before they start working? We need baseline water samples on every site before drilling occurs, during drilling, and after, for the life of the well. This is not happening. Write to your legislators. We have other options, as Charlotte said, for energy. Now, I know a family, I'm not going to name the name, but this family in Doddridge County is surrounded by 3 pipelines. The Stonewall, which has numerous violations and is not complete, but the PSC is hands-off because once it's in the ground, it's the responsibility of the operator. The MVP and the ACP. This beautiful farm is surrounded. This family lost their daughter because there was a well blowout when Antero was drilling a well. Forgive me, it might not be Antero. I'm not going to say Antero. It was a gas company that was drilling a well. The well blew out into the water. The water came spewing out of the faucets and out of the windows and along the floor and out on the ground. That water was full of fracking chemicals, and everybody in that area got poisoned, and their daughter died. She got leukemia and died, and that the physician that treated her stated that it was benzene poisoning. And this is happening all over the place. And let me tell you something, I deal with the media, and they suppress this information. You send it to them, and they don't print it. You call up a reporter with a story, and they won't cover it because their editor said no. Especially in certain counties in West Virginia, especially in places where Dominion has headquarters and a pipeline is going to start. I'm sure you know where that is. The jobs thing, and I'll get out of the way, it's a hoodwink. The jobs are not going to go to local people for the most part because many of these jobs are skilled jobs. These people, these companies, these pipeline companies bring their workers with them because they've been trained. They're not going to come into an area and train a bunch of new people. It's too expensive and they don't know that they can pass the drug test and everything else. They bring those people with them, and sometimes the people that work in one county live in another county. So don't think that because a pipeline goes in your county that it's going to provide jobs. You can't trust a profit-making company's figures because they have an interest in making it look appealing to investors and stockholders and stakeholders. So Dominion says of their ACP that there's going to be 17,000 jobs provided in 3 states. We don't trust that. We went and got an independent consulting firm to do an economic study, and they said those numbers are way wrong. Now, I don't have those numbers in my head right now, but what I do have is Dominion's very own numbers, and let me explain to you. The report says the 17,000 jobs is over a 3-state area in West Virginia, and those jobs are temporary for the 2-year construction period. In West Virginia, the number of permanent jobs created by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline would be 74. That is by Dominion's high numbers. So don't be hoodwinked. We need solar, we need wind, geothermal. There are many different types of renewable energies. Everything is coming. The science is moving quickly. We can do this. It is time to leave gas behind, save our water, save our children, save our future, and save our state.
Cindy Rank?
I didn't sign up, but I would say a few words.
Well, there was nothing in the line, so I couldn't even fill it out.
My name is Cindy Rank, and I'm with the West Virginia Highlands Conservancy. We've met several of you when we've come over here to look at Doddridge years ago, and I drive through here and see what's happening along Route 50. I really agree with a lot of things that were said tonight, but I want to bring us back a little bit to the permitting process and to DEP. And I'd like to say that the Highlands Conservancy is one of several groups that have signed on and were part of the comments that April has talked about that were submitted both on the 401 and the stormwater tonight. And from those, I would say they really don't answer the questions that a lot of people have. And I think that our comments have pointed out some of the inadequacies of them. And I would hope that you all would take that into consideration when you're looking at it. Given that, I would hope that, I don't know whether legally under the regulations we're allowed, but I would hope that once some of the gaps are filled, once a lot of the extra information that we've suggested need to be in there, that we could have another meeting or another opportunity for comment on the fuller application. And I realize that we have so many permits here that it's very confusing to address the stormwater with 401 or Yogesh's landfill permit at some particular point in time. And one of the problems I think a lot of us have is that we do this also piecemeal. You know, we're doing stormwater for what, 90 acres, when we know that the whole landfill is going to be 200 and whatever, almost 300 acres, and the whole facility is 486 acres. It's very difficult to talk about one little piece and see what the overall impact is. I don't know how you get around that, but one of the things that I would hope that we could do at some point in time is DEP not just relying on us who don't understand the permitting or don't really understand how to get there through the website, that maybe we could have our own DEP presentations about the permitting as opposed to Antero's PR about how wonderful the things are going to be. I know it's difficult, I know it's extra time on the staff, but it may well help a lot of people understand just where your responsibilities lie and what we need to expect of you and what we can hold you accountable for, as opposed to what we would try to hold Antero or whoever else it is responsible for. I think that might help the process. Anyway, I can't remember what else I was going to say, but since I didn't sign up in the first place, I guess that's fine. But we would like to see more information from DEP once Antero is able to provide some of the answers. And I know the landfill permit is very complicated as well. I mean, I've looked through it. I'm not one that dealt with landfill when Charlotte was in the legislature. I've dealt with coal a lot, coal permitting, and that's difficult enough to figure out. But the landfill permits are equally as difficult. So if in fact this stuff really happens, and who knows what's in the next 5 years for the gas industry, you know, we need to know just what it is we can expect, what it is we can watch out for if it goes in. And I'm one that would hope it wouldn't go in, but that's not totally up to me. Thank you.
This next one, I'm not sure if this is a yes or no either. Kevin Campbell, did you wish to speak? Okay. Is there anyone whose name I have overlooked? Anyone else who would like to speak? Maybe someone didn't sign up to speak but has changed their mind. Okay, last call. Okay. This concludes the public hearing on the proposed stormwater construction permit for the Antero landfill project. The DEP will review all comments and take them into consideration before deciding whether to issue or deny the permit. As a reminder, we will continue to take public comments on the stormwater construction permit until September 3rd. They can be postmarked by that date if you're sending them through the mail. Tonight is the deadline, however, for comments on the State 401 water quality certification requested by Antero Landfill Project and Antero Treatment LLC. That public comment deadline was initially August 12th, but was extended through today due to significant public interest. And again, the postmark of today will work on that as well if you're sending that through the mail. If anyone needs the email address, dep.comments@wv.gov, or needs the mailing address for any of these, please see me after the hearing. We also have our permitting staff on hand for a few minutes. If anyone would like to walk up and speak to them within the next few minutes, feel free. Thank you for your participation in this process. Have a nice evening and a safe trip home.